Europe always looks at the countries around, and this is the center of its interests, apart from looking inward, to make sure that you have democratic, prosperous, well-functioning countries on its borders. So when you have a situation like now, for example, that not only we have a war on the European continent, we have a war directly in our neighborhood. It's something that obviously occupies Europeans and European policymakers and European politicians quite a bit. And I think that overall we have a stabilizing role. We support the transformation of countries in the neighborhood. We try to facilitate when they have conflicts between themselves, and this was really sort of exporting stability rather than importing instability has been very much a hallmark of our policy and support in the transformation reforms. This is more true about the Eastern neighborhood traditionally, but of course Europe also has the Southern neighborhood around the Mediterranean basin, where there were big hopes after the Arab Spring, which didn't fully materialize, but nevertheless the countries and what happens in them are of pivotal importance, whether it deals with energy issues, whether it deals with migration, whether it deals with labor supply or friendly relations, because as we know, now we have wars in both the Eastern and Southern neighborhood. The European Union has been one of the key and is still one of the key supporters of Ukrainian reform process that really started with the Maidan revolution in 2013-14 when the ex-president Yanukovych didn't sign the association agreement and this deep and comprehensive free trade agreement with the European Union. That sparked the public protest that led to the change of regime and eventually occupation of Crimea and incursion into Donbass by Russia. But since then, Ukrainians have been reforming also to align with the acquis communautaire, with the rules and norms that are mandated by the DCFTA and now will be by the accession process to the EU. And currently they are reforming while fighting an existential war, which is remarkable in itself. And they have made a tremendous amount of progress. That's why when I talk about enlargement coming to the agenda with Ukraine, I always say they are not starting from scratch, because already under the association agreement they've done a lot of steps in aligning their institutions, their laws with the EU in specific areas. So therefore there is still a lot to do. They are not certainly at the end of the journey, but well underway. And the big challenge is, political economy of reforms is complicated. You have vested interests that fight against reforms because they want to keep their privileges. So you have this give and take in every transition country, and even in established democracies. Look at examples of reforming the labor code in France or the regional banks in Germany. Things are not easy to reform, things are not easy to change, and particularly tricky has of course been the area of rule of law, anti-corruption, but again, they have done over the last 10 years, a tremendous amount of work in this area. And I think that altogether it prepares them very, very well for the accession process to the EU. I think that Natolin has really very unique both a method and expertise in this area, and I think that a number of colleagues that I talked to in the European institutions or national administrations are graduates of Natolin, and I think just the choice of professors and the student body really creates, and the beautiful atmosphere of Natolin creates a very, very interesting and unique sort of a environment in which the topic of enlargement can be really well both researched, taught, and then eventually the word spread, because there is a lot of lack of understanding, especially in the parts of the world, in the parts of Europe that have not gone through this process, is very hard to convey. And even in our countries, I also come from a country from the Big Bang enlargement in 2004, even in our countries you now have a whole generation that did not have that experience and the sacrifices and trade-offs that had to be done at that time. So I think that it's very well honed and invested here in new people, in new students, this experience. So I think it benefits us greatly.